Okay, so this is OpenCreds, and the idea of it is that users are in charge of their own credentials. They sign them with their DID or with a verifiable credential, but they save it to their Google Drive. So they can actually import one that already exists, or they can add one. I'm going to import one because that's a little quicker, a workflow, and it doesn't really matter whether we create it here or we add it this way. Let me see if I have a credential. So I have a credential that I already prepared, and in this case I'm going to import one that already exists. The app also has a flow to create one, but either way, it's now actually in my Google Drive. And if I go and I look in my Drive, the app has created it in my Google Drive. And I can see that I have this credential that I just imported, and now it's saved on my Google Drive. And so far, this would only require that we need the app permission for edit files that the app creates. But the real power here is that we can ask someone for a recommendation. So I will ask Gatunga to make a recommendation for me. Now, Gatunga, you don't really know that I raised this toad, but you trust me. This toad is a baby that was actually in my swimming pool. But anyway, we're going to call it wildlife gardening. And you are going to recommend me for this credential. So I would email you this link just in my regular email. I'll go in my Gmail. Hopefully nothing funny is in here. And I will send an email. And Gatunga, I'm going to send this to you on your Gmail. And I'll say, please recommend me. And I'll say, use this link. Now this link goes to our app. But now is why we need the larger scope. Because when I send this to Gatunga, she is going to open another copy of the same app, but it just loads in the browser. It's not doing anything on the back end. And in her browser, now she has to recommend me. Let me actually, because I'm taking the video, I will actually do it in another identity of my own. So suppose I send this other identity of mine, this recommendation scope. And now I have to be able first to see it. So already we are using our expanded scope because this person who is not me needs to see this credential. And how can they see it? They are actually, this is actually its ID on my Google Drive, or it's being converted to an ID in my Google Drive. And so they need to load it from my Google Drive. And it's shared, but we need the scope to be able to load it, even though this person in the orange browser did not make that credential. The person in the green browser did and sent it to the person in the orange browser. But they want them to see it because they want a recommendation about it. So now the orange person is going to recommend them. And this would still be all read-only scope, and we would only need the read scope. So I will just be like, I'll just make some silly recommendation here. We really do have a lot of toads here in Tucson. Okay, so they make some kind of thing. Okay, great. Okay, and they're going to preview it, and they're going to make the recommendation. And when they do this, it's actually making a comment back on the original document. So that is why we need the edit permission, because there's not just a comment permission. We looked, we didn't find a comment scope. So that original recommendation is shared with permission to enable this user to be able to comment. And when he clicks this, he is making a comment in that original one, which I think is actually very clever in a way, that there is a comment on the Google Drive, which is the recommendation for the first credential. So if you look inside the first person's Google Drive, you can actually see that some of the other ones, let's see if I can find one with a comment, you can actually see the comment. And so this is one I commented on myself. So here is the credential, and here is the recommendation to that credential, which is the recommendation. So we're using the comment facility in the drive to allow a second person to recommend the first person's credential, and both of them are signed with their DIDs, and then the users are not depending on any server to store their credentials or their recommendations. So if we go out of business tomorrow, it's okay, because as long as the code is there and their Google Drive is there, they still have the recommendations. And that's very different than Credly or LinkedIn, where if they disappear and take their databases down, you just lost everything you had on there. But in our case, because they are actually digitally signed and stored on your Google Drive, you did not lose them, and you can still prove you had the recommendations. And that is the essence of our app, but that is why we need the expanded scope. Thank you.